you to the Ask Jeff YouTube channel. Here's today's question. If pride and selfish ambition caused Satan to lead a rebellion against God, the result of which was God casting Satan and his accomplices to earth, why did God not create people to inhabit another planet and leave Satan and his minions alone on the earth? Why did God allow Satan to afflict his created people with sin and cause such misery for them and his paradise? Well, as oftentimes with Ask Jeff, this is one of those, it's not just a question, it is a series of questions. Allow me to address this question very simplistically, then we're going to get a little complex. Anytime we're dealing with a biblical issue, oftentimes we know the who is involved, we know how it took place, where it took place, even when it took place. But the question that's asked here is the why. And a lot of times I like to default to Isaiah chapter 55, where it says that God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. So anytime we struggle with the why factor, it's because we're not God. Now, I'm not trying to dismiss the question. I'm not trying to avoid the question, but it's a really good question. Because in Genesis chapter 6, when God decides to flood the earth and destroy those who were not on the boat, it says it repented him, or he changed his mind, that he made man on the earth. And in this series of questions, a great series where it says, why didn't he just put us somewhere else? Now, there's a lot of different perspectives that we could take to this, but allow me to answer this in a little more complex way. All throughout Scripture, whether it's the building of the tabernacle, the return of the Israelites to rebuild the temple in the book of Ezra, or even in the gospel accounts and the letters of Paul, we get this very clear idea that God has designed us to worship him. Now, allow me to define worship. Worship is our willing response to a self-revealing God. In the book of Exodus, it says, bring a offering of one's free will to build the tabernacle. In Ezra 7:16, it says to go of your free will and to rebuild the temple. The Bible speaks about whosoever believes shall be saved. Whosoever shall come. There's all these passages that talk about that God has laid out his plan and what he desires, and we have the opportunity to willingly respond or to rightfully worship him. Which is interesting because you go back in the old catechisms of days gone by of people of faith, and it says what is the chief purpose of God, of humanity is to worship God, to respond to him properly. That being said, how do you and I respond properly? By deciding not to respond inappropriately. The Garden of Eden. How does the Lord set it up? Long before sin falls into the world, long before the serpent tests and tries humanity, what does he tell Adam in chapter 2, verse 16 of Genesis? You may eat of every tree of the garden freely, except the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In the Garden of Eden, God desired Adam to worship him, respond willingly to his self-revealing. And so I think the answer to the why question, even though we struggle with it, is the fact that God desires us to worship him. And I hate to use the term, but he wants us to choose him. I'll conclude in Joshua chapter 24. The Israelites are going into the promised land. Choose you this day who you will serve. Will it be the gods on the other side of the flood, the gods of the Amorites? Or will it be the one true God? It is my desire today that in spite of oftentimes not knowing the why, it would be your decision and your choice to choose the one true God. Great question. If you have one, send it to askjeff.net, and maybe your question will be tomorrow's. Thanks for being a part of today's daily question. Now, we answer a question each and every day. Please feel free to submit a new question at askjeff.net. We may not have gotten to yours today, but we eventually will continue to be a part of this. Subscribe so you don't miss out on a question every day.